Hey, my name is Mike Acosta from ADSR Sounds, and in this particular video, I want to do a quick look at 3 brand new VST audio unit editors that I came across this past weekend. Now, these editors actually work for the Roland Aira TR-8 drum machine, and also for the Roland Boutique series for the JP-08 and the JU-06. So I got a copy of these 3 editors, and it's from a software developer, and I hope I pronounce his name correctly. It is Momo Müller, and his site is based off of Jimco or something like that, jimco.com, and I'll be giving you the address to this particular site at the end of this video so that you can go there and check it out. But there are 3 editors that he's built, and they're actually really, really cool. So the first one up that I'm going to show you is the TR-8 effects remote. So if we open that up, here is the TR-8 controller, and as you can see, the layout on it is pretty much similar to the actual hardware interface, and there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with this. Now, if you own the TR-8 and a couple of the boutique instruments, you'll already know that in order to get into some deep editing functions within those units, there's always some button combo push where you have to hold one button while pressing another and then maybe do something else to actually access a particular function. And while it may be simple to do that, when you have several of these units and you're trying to program and get things together, it becomes a little difficult to try and remember all the different button combo pushes to access some of these features. So definitely a editor like this will come in real handy when you're trying to either work on a song within a DAW and you want to record, certain parameters and automate them and things like that. The editors will play a very big part in simplifying that process for you. So just to take a really quick look at it, when you first install the editors, you're going to have to, do a little bit of a setup, with the MIDI portions. Now, when you go into MIDI section here at the top, you'll see that you'll have the input device, and you have to set all these up because by default they load with nothing set up. So you'll need to come to this particular section and you'll have to go under this device, and you'll see that you'll want to choose the TR-8 there. And also you can set the channels here. I have my channel set to 1. I think by default the TR-8 is set to 10, so you can change that if you need to. Under a controller, so if you have a dedicated MIDI controller, as I do here, I have the Novation SL-MK2, and you can set that so that you can actually trigger the TR-8 from there. And then your output device, you'll also want to make sure that you have the TR-8 selected, and again, channel 1 selected. And you also have some other options here for MIDI through and some different plugin options as well. So one thing that I need to note is that for the boutique instruments, including the Aira TR-8, and there's also editors for the TB3 as well, you need to make sure that all of the units are on the latest firmware. That is 1.10, if I'm not mistaken. You'll need to go to the Roland website and download the latest firmware for those particular units. And those latest firmwares actually update the units with the ability to access specific CC controller functions. And that's what will enable these particular software editors to work. So you'll need to make sure that your firmware is up to date on those particular units before you actually go and install the editors and try to get it working. Now, with that being said, again, we'll go back here to this particular software editor. And it's very simple to get a lot of the different functions working on here. Once you have the MIDI portion set up correctly, you have access directly from the interface here to audition the different drum sounds. Now, the way that I have it set up right now is I have Ableton set to sync, and therefore when I press play on the transport, it then starts the sequence on the Roland TR-8. And the reason I have this set up right now just for this specific purpose is there's a lot of really cool ways to control the effects that are on the TR-8. And obviously, if you sequence it inside of Ableton or your DAW, the scatter function and some of these other things won't work because obviously the sequence is now inside Ableton and it's not inside the TR-8. So for right now, I just wanted to show you a couple of cool things that this particular remote editor can do. So one is you have access to the scatter mix. So if we press play, okay, now the other cool thing is that you actually have an XY pad here, and this will then automate through the different parameters of the scatter mix. So it will obviously navigate through the different types and randomize the depth for each one. So if we turn this back on, so you can see that this can get pretty fun. And as you're working in your DAW, it's pretty cool that you'll be able to actually automate this kind of stuff and then capture it. So that's one really cool function there with the scatter mix. The other thing is that you also have the ability to switch the drum kits here. So if we play them, so that's a pretty cool function there, that you have access to the different drum kits. Now, there are some more in-depth functions that you can do, like sending program changes and things like that. You can do all of that kind of stuff with this particular editor. Now, the other thing that I thought was really cool is the XY pad configurations on each of the drum parts here. So on this particular section here for the kick drum, if we move this, you can see that this is now controlling the volume between the kick drum and the actual open hi-hat. Now, why is that useful? So let's say if we play this, so again, some really cool things that you can do. You can, of course, automate this stuff. So again, down in the bottom here, if you hit configure, you can pretty much grab any slider here, and then so you can see the low tom volume is now mapped there, and any knob that's up here if you want to add the decay, and that adds it right there as well. And now you have quick access to these particular parameters so that you can automate them later on, which is really cool. You also have control over the effects here as well. So if we hit play, okay, some, again, really cool things that you can automate that this allows you to do now within your DAW. And you can also automate most of these parameters, and you can actually assign them yourself. So if you go to this particular section here, and let's say you want to grab the XY here, if you right click on it, you can choose the X axis, and let's say you wanted to assign the reverb time to that, and then on the Y axis, maybe control the delay feedback. And so now as we do this, you can see at the top there that the reverb time and delay feedback are moving simultaneously back and forth randomly as we move across through the XY. Now this is, again, you can totally automate this stuff, and that's what makes this really, really important in terms of writing music and trying to come up with some really creative things happening instead of just having some static patterns. So again, this allows you to get really in-depth, into the TR-8 without having to do a bunch of different button combo presses and things like that. It really does simplify the connection between the TR-8 and your DAW and being able to automate specific CC parameters. Now, one last thing really quick too is that you also have like a snapshot function, so you can take specific snapshots that are set up within the TR-8 that you may have here on the software, and you can send that to and from the TR-8, which is another great thing. Also too, whatever settings you have on the editor here, once you save your project and you load the project back up, this will automatically call up those particular settings on the TR-8. And you also have, if you noticed up here, you also have some XY that is assigned to the different parameters of the drums as well, like the decay and the snap of the snare drum. And right here, you also have the decay and the attack of the kick drum. So again, some really cool things. So that's pretty much the TR-8 editor. There's some more in-depth things that you can do with it, like you have the options here for your MIDI setup, the program changes that can be sent back and forth, saving banks, sending banks to and from the unit as well. Now the other one that I thought was really cool too is that there is also a JP-08 editor. Now this is really cool because again, with the boutiques, they have such a small footprint that a lot of the in-depth features and functions again are all covered up through combo button pushes, and that makes it a little difficult to try to get into and perform specific functions. So having the editor like this again makes it really easy to get into those parameters and automate them within your DAW. So let me go here and let's turn on the external instrument. And one thing that I will mention too is within Ableton, and again, this isn't for every single DAW because they may be different, but at least in Ableton, when you have an external instrument set up like a MIDI track here, you'll insert the external instrument plugin from Ableton so that you can route it to the JP-08, and then you can set the channel here, and then you can receive audio from it. Now, you cannot have the external instrument and the editor both residing on the same MIDI track. So what you'll have to do is have one track here where you'll actually record all your MIDI information and have the external instrument plugin set in, and then you'll have to have another MIDI track set up that will host the editor. And it's, it'd be nice to have them both on the same track, but you can't do it that way in Ableton unless I'm missing something. But you'll have to have separate tracks for the editors, and you can still edit them and it will still affect the JP-08, so it's not a problem. You'll just have to have them on two separate tracks. So once we turn that on, and let's also shut off the sync for the TR-8, because right now, just for the purpose of making this video a little bit easier, I routed all the audio from the JP-08 into the JU-06, then out of the JU-06 into the TR-8, and then into my Apollo interface, just to simplify this process. So I'll shut off the sync there, so that way the drum machine isn't going off while we're playing some of the other parts. And let me turn up the volume on the external in on the TR-8. And okay, so there you have, that's the JP-08 that's playing right there. And again, you have the XY pads here, and these are assigned to the cutoff and the resonance. So if we So again, really easy to assign this stuff as well. So just like I showed you on the TR-8, you can go in on the X-axis here and assign the X-axis to any of the parameters that you see here within the JP-08, and the same thing with the Y-axis. And you can go and assign that as well. And you can also flip these around. So depending on how you want the values to go to negative or positive values, you can flip them around as well. Another thing too with this editor on the JP-08, there's specific button pushes that you got to do to get to the portamento, and this gives you the portamento right on the interface here, which is great. Also, the delay is not on the hardware interface, so with the software you have access to it directly right here. Those are two really big things that really made this worthwhile for me to be using. Now if you want to automate the XY stuff, it's really simple to do that. Again, you'll have one track for your MIDI information where you're playing the notes, and then you'll have another track, a MIDI track that will host the editor. Now remember, you'll probably need to use the VST version of this because audio units cannot send MIDI from one plugin to like another track, because there's just like a limitation with that. So make sure you're using the VST version so that you can actually automate the XY pad movements. So if we just hit record here, Okay, so now if we play it back, okay, and now we have some simple automation already happening on the JP-08. Again, really, really cool stuff. You also have access to switching the patches right here at the top again. So if we hit play, again, it makes it simple to transfer patches to and from the actual device. And again, when you save your project, all settings that you made on this particular editor are saved with your project, and it'll instantly recall it once you load the project back up. So again, very, very cool thing to have. Last one I'm going to show you real quick is the Roland JU-06. So again, you can do the same thing. You can change patches right from the top here. We can add some noise to that. Again, it gives you all access to the parameters, and the same thing on the front panel of the JU-06. You don't have access to the portamento or the delay. So on here, you actually have access to it. You can increase the time. Let's say we want to add a little bit of delay. Again, really, really simple to get access to those parameters. Again, these are hidden parameters that are not on the actual surface of the JU-06. You have to do some button combo presses. So again, this just simplifies the process. You also have access to the chorus effect here, which allows you to easily switch on between the two different variations of the chorus that are on here, which is cool. And again, you have XY control. So right now, this is controlling the frequency and the resonance of the filter section. And again, by simply right-clicking, you have access to the X-axis and assign that to whatever you like, as well as the Y-axis. So again, this is just a quick overview just to take a look at these editors. I've only had about a day to work with them, and so far they're working really cool. They allow simple, easy access to a lot of parameters that are otherwise a little difficult to get to on some of these products. And it definitely simplifies the process for automating this in your DAW. So if we play this all back together, let's say we go back to our JP-08, we'll turn that on, and we'll move this MIDI clip here for the drums since we're not going to actually sync it. So there you go. Those are the editors. And again, I will give you the address right now because I'm not sure if it's the company name. I do know that the software's developer's name is Momo Müller. Again, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. And this is the site here. So these are all the different editors that he has. If we go and take a look here, and right here, you can also see that he has editors for the TV3. There is also an iOS MIDI editor. There's an Ableton Live iOS MIDI editor, and he has two editors for the Volca Beats and the Volca Bass. I also saw that there was another editor for the iPhone, so I'm not sure if it's one of these. That might be this iOS MIDI editor, so you can run it on your iPhone and also on your iPad. So again, The price on these, I believe they're like $5.90 in the euro, which translates to about $6.60. So really, really affordable. You cannot beat that, and they work really great. So again, you can see here, there's a couple of different payment options that you could do. There's a couple of videos. And again, these editors work really well. And again, they allow access to some parameters that are kind of difficult to get to, and they definitely simplify the automation process within your DAW. So I hope you enjoyed that. Definitely check it out and have some fun with those particular products and automating them in your DAW. My name is Mike Acosta from ADSR Sounds. Thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe to the ADSR channel below and stay on top of all of our first look videos, quick tip tutorials, and new products.